So, anyone in the mood for playing a game from 2001 in 2016 but in an online open world? Yeah, you are? Well, Mortal Online is just the game for you then. Mortal Online is a first-person MMO taking place in a fantasy realm like that of Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, The Elder Scrolls and what have you. In terms of design, it really takes after the Elder Scrolls model used more in Morrowind and a little from Oblivion. You create a single character, and I literally mean single character unless you purchase more character slots, and enjoy the freedom of exploring a seamless world, as I figured, in whichever way you can possibly imagine. The foundation and the basis of what has been proposed here is simply brilliant, and it is in fact something I was looking forward to in a long time. The problem is that the execution of it doesn't quite come across as well as one would hope, and in time, exploring the world in any way you imagine doesn't always add up, as you find yourself spending more time finding out how you can do what you imagined, if at all, rather than doing it and enjoying the game. It doesn't help much after that anyway, when quite a lot of the things you do end up doing feel unpolished, leaving a bitter taste of a mediocre reward to a stale experience that together simply don't add up and are not worth your time. Mortal Online boasts a hardcore experience, and I'll have to say that for some part it probably does achieve it, a little, especially with the whole open PvP design of the game. That being that the entire game is more or less free for player versus player encounters, and anyone can find you and kill you off. That element is probably among the few nails the game hit on the head, and I was quite intrigued by the idea going in, as it does create a survival kind of mentality which is lacking in most MMOs today. I rather enjoyed that direction. After that, the character creation follows some nice RPG elements from a range of races to choose from, ancestry and whatnot, that determine your base class selections, which are also relatively free from their own in their own advancement. These are all things heading into the right direction and great design ideas. Characters also have no leveling system of their own, which is another element I praise and one that adds to that hardcore notion, meaning you do not ding from character level to get skills. All leveling up is done through the skills you perform, and all levels accumulated are for those skills alone. Even running increases your skill points, just like Morrowind. And that's pretty much Mortal Online. I am assuming there's probably also a story mode to it. I didn't find one in my 15 hours or more in it, so I wouldn't know. In all seriousness, I played something like 15 hours or more in this game, which is usually around 15 times that of what I need to make up my mind over a game. Allow me to explain how it goes. After over 25 years of gaming, I am at a point where it usually takes me about an hour to gather all my first impressions about a game. These first impressions, as I have come to realize and put to the test time and time again for well over a decade now, are usually quite aligned with my final impressions, no matter how many hours I spend on that said title. I usually go into doing one of two things after the initial first hour. I either 1. Continue playing and putting hours into the game to give a benefit of a doubt and to make sure I'm doing the developers justice for the time they put into it, with the hope that I can salvage what I can from it, or 2. I get caught up into the experience and those hours pass in a pretty smooth manner without me usually noticing, as I stumble across things I either like or dislike along the way. Number 2 leads into titles that I enjoy quite a lot, and for those titles evidently my score increases. To further justify larger scores, I put even more time into a title to make sure I give an accurate as possible review on the game, all the while enjoying the process as I go through the experience of playing that game. Mortal Online was a strange encounter. For starters, I have really been looking forward to a game like this in a long time. With its Steam launch, I stumbled across it, and although the screenshots left me perplexed, I still wanted to give it a shot because everything else the game was boasting it could deliver on was in fact something that interests me quite a bit. Add to this that I am an Elder Scrolls fan from as far back as Morrowind, and I was really looking forward to picking apart at this right from the moment I saw it. This kept me going on for many more hours than I could handle, and 15 hours is already way too many, as I ended up enjoying around 2 or 3 of them, if even that, a ratio which doesn't fare well for any game in my books. I'm going to cut right to the chase because in all honesty I simply feel I already spent too much of my life on this experience, as little as it was. Let's start with the one character limitation the game slaps you with when you launch into it. This is simply wrong, no matter how one goes about it. 2 is the bare minimum and I will be okay with 2, but 1? especially in a game that goes completely out of its way to make understanding things as hard as it can on you, increasing the desire in wanting to roll a new character with each passing moment, and the frustration of not being able to even hire as you try to make up your mind if this game is even worth buying that second character slot to begin with for some more extensive testing. And that leads us into the biggest problem of this game. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, probably, as I have noticed a pretty large group out there roam around defending the drawbacks of this game as hardcore. Dark Souls is hardcore, guys, and yes, some elements in this game can be considered hardcore as well, and the very reason behind me being intrigued to begin with. The rest is simply a sloppy design that just gets in the way of any proper experience to be had. And that is the biggest problem. I found that in my 15-hour stay in the game, I was trying to figure out how to do things for a good 8 hours at least. And this included me asking questions in the community, trying to make sense of the objectives in game or bearing, and lastly, browsing a whole lot of Wiki and Google. As a matter of fact, my browser time for this game doesn't even count into my total time played for those wandering, those 15 hours. Half the experience and more was spent with me simply trying to figure out what is what on the simplest of things. Not extensive mechanics, the simple mechanics. Even a hardcore game would steer clear of this. I luckily picked up most of it on the go with some trial and error, thanks to being well versed with many game genres, as most of us are. But even I had to deal with trial and error, each time reminding me I am playing a game as opposed to being immersed in a living world. The rest of the experience felt exhausting and repetitive, and it hardly paid off for that other half spent on research. That is not a good sign for an RPG, not one bit. Add to this the fact that the interface is designed to get on your nerves, with flashing artifacts and sloppy design, and the worst part, a nonsense of a UI structure to take you through it all. I will admit that the way they handle the skills and the fact that all your actions could be found in a single place and everything is treated as skills to be a good thing, a great thing actually, but it hardly made up for everything else. In fact, it proved what I figured for this game on the go. That it has great potential, the heart of the developers is in the right place for the most part, but it is simply executed poorly. For the most part, I felt as if the game design was purposefully made in a way to get in the way of learning things and adapting to this world, with even such things as lacking access to a map. For those ready to jump on that hardcore argument again, I ask you this. Having an inventory with which you are carrying impossible loads of items to begin with in weight and size, which are measured in numeric values and therefore players' understanding and not a part of the world immersion, is okay to be a part of the design, and it's not softcore, but access to a map, not an overlay map, simply a drawn map like that in a book where you would still have to find your way around it, is not okay to be a part of the game and all of a sudden deemed unrealistic or softcore? Seriously? Please, it all starts to sound like biased arguments to me, especially for a world that looks so damn repetitive and flat. A map in this level design is a must. Even the Corinthians in ancient Greece had drawn maps for, wait for it, naval routes. That's right, naval routes. You're telling me a drawn map of a city or land mass is too much for this world? Please, it's a fantasy world, not a world with cavemen. They can figure out how to make armors and have books and libraries and spells, but they can't draw a damn map? Maybe maps are in the game after all. After asking, I came across the realization that if there are any maps, no one knows about them, which further adds to my previous point of the game getting in the way of learning or finding things simply because. I will simply just continue to assume there are no maps, period, aside from those on Google, which again are browsing time outside of the game. I was, regardless, able to look past all of this, as long as the experience was something that I could warm up to. But with graphics that date in some areas to the standards of 2001 and in some few other areas the standards of 2005, it was hard to justify my staying in a world that felt outdated by over a decade. So I went on to combat. Hey, at least that would be cool, right? Well, it was a jarring experience to say the least, with poor animations all over, and although the foundation was set in a good direction for the game, it seldom if ever paid off. Blocking was all over the place, timings were all over the place, characters looked strange, and it all felt weird. If you're going to make a hardcore game based on open PvP, then the last thing you need to make sure is done right is the combat animation and mechanics. I could go on nitpicking this title apart, but as I said, I already spent too much time on it, and this from my desperate need to want to find redeeming elements in it that I could enjoy. I kid you not, I wanted to like this game so much. On paper, it's something I truly want to experience and have wanted for years. The result, however, no matter how much I tried, kept me distant from any sort of enjoyment, and I simply could not be immersed even after 15 hours of trying. And now for the cherry on the cake. The title, although everyone neglects to mention this for some reason, is Pay to Win. Yep, and one of the worst pay to wins around for that matter too. As a free-to-play title, it shows they either didn't have enough time or were too lazy to implement for a proper free-to-play microtransaction system into the game, say like something the likes of Warframe. For this reason, you are slapped with ridiculous limitations like that of just one available character slot, and the worst part of it all, a level cap on all your skills. I kid you not. Subscribers have their skills unlocked to the maximum potential of level 100 per skill. Free accounts are capped at level 60. You continue to accumulate skill points up to 100, but efficiency is cut off at 60. It's not even an account upgrade, it's a subscription plan, which I am against even more than account upgrades, creating a very unbalanced experience that is the essence of pay to win in a game that is meant for open PvP. This to me is simply unacceptable, or to put it in plain words, garbage. I could recommend this game for a mere 15 bucks, maybe 20, but that's pushing it a little. That is, in all honesty, where I place it with regards to pricing. A one-time purchase price of $20 and all content unlocked from there on out. I am afraid that the quality levels of this game simply do not deserve something more than that, much less a subscription plan. I honestly have no idea, but I am trying to wrap my head around it since it does have a pretty strong following. Perhaps all the people that are fed up with the usual tell me everything I have to do and guide my hand to do it MMOs out there, maybe they have had enough of such gameplay and it is completely refreshing for them to see something seemingly so open. Maybe some nostalgias out there that feel like they are experiencing a better version of Morrowind in an online open world. For the rest of us that have had our fair share of both classic games, hardcore games, as well as dumbed down games, and for the standards that we have thankfully evolved to in gaming, this title will fall short on all fronts and simply leave the player without nothing but a bitter taste of what could have been. Those that are looking for this kind of game, pretty much like I was, but are also completely cool with spending more time to find things out, are not graphic-oriented players and really care little about subscriptions, as in they would gladly pay for them and think it is fine. The game is not complete garbage, but it does remain as just below average. Perhaps it is the only title of its kind for now, and a necessary evil, who knows. But I will just barely recommend it to such gamers, with a large grain of salt, and with all the warnings I mentioned in this review. 4 out of 10 for its target group. General gamers out there of other genres and tastes and whatnot, people that are not specifically looking for this kind of game and are attuned with today's age and technology in games, and also don't agree to pay to win, the best I can give this score from that angle is 2 out of 10 for effort, and I'm really trying to be kind here. My personal score? I have to say that I still like the idea of what they're going for, and if it wasn't for the execution of it all, I am probably among the people that the game was meant for, as I was looking for this kind of experience. It left me completely disappointed, however, and I cannot give it more than 3 out of 10. The average score thus comes to 3 out of 10. I still keep to some hope though, and will be checking in from time to time to see if things change, although the game has been around seemingly for some years now, and I doubt it will be improved. I can still hope, as I think that perhaps there is enough chance that the developers are in fact doing their best and truly want to improve on all things I mentioned. If that is the case, then I wish them all the best of luck and also hope they achieve their goals. I think that at the very least, for the game to be on par with an average standards, it should be upgraded with a graphical and animation overhaul and a UI that works. The game is running on Unreal technology, yet it feels as dated as Morrowind, only with higher resolution textures and more polygons. Maybe I'm just being naive in thinking that they are going for more, as I looked through the history of the game and it doesn't seem to want to head into the direction I am speaking of one bit. On the contrary, the developers on the official site claim the graphics of the game are cutting edge, and this points towards a game that had a great vision behind it, a good direction to head into for the most part, poor execution, and even more neglect on the other elements that are or should be essential to a game, because either they think those elements are just already fine, or because they perhaps never thought of them or cared about those elements to begin with. I still want to give a benefit of a doubt to the devs, as there are some elements in the game that have been implemented with care, and I am hoping that this is not the end result of what we will see for this title. If this was always their intended result, then I really think they emerged a decade too late. For argument's sake now, I even had some friends defend the title and tell me that, aside from all the technical aspects which they could not deny, I am simply someone that wants things handed to them. I am all up for finding things out about a game on my own, however within the context of the game. Apparently I was not aware that hardcore means getting in the way of learning a game as opposed to just letting it roll. If that is all that hardcore gaming has to offer, well then, I pass, guys. And that's it for my review on Mortal Online. What are your thoughts on all this, guys? Leave a comment below and let me know of your impressions of the game. I urge you to try and express opinions in a civilized manner if possible, as it is in the end simply just an opinion. Do you agree with the score I gave Mortal Online? And what was your experience with it if you played it? As always, if you enjoyed this review, please hit the thumbs up, and if you like our videos, don't forget to subscribe for more right here on the Digital Creative Front. This was Hazard Reborn, and I'll see you next time.